What is going on, guys? It's Yoji. GGG recently revealed 4 unique items which will be added to the game in the Path of Exile patch 2.3. In this video I want to share my thoughts with you on what I think about the items, how strong I believe they will be, and discuss some possible builds in which those uniques could see use. Let's start off with Neuros Harp. It is a 220 DPS elemental or rather cold damage Harbinger bow. It cannot deal any physical damage and is in that regard similar to Stormcloud. Harbinger is a crit base and the bow has a level 68 requirement, so it is an endgame item for at least mapping level or higher. Now here are my problems with the item. The crit is okay, not very high, but one could deal with it using the increased critical strike support gem. Sadly, the bow also has no crit multiplier, which is a very important stat for crit builds. And the attack speed for an elemental bow is abysmal. Elemental builds stack added elemental damage from auras, as well as gear, and multiply those flat values by having very high attack speed. This is already a huge downside to the bow. The unique mods, besides the light radius no one cares about, are 15% chance to create chilled ground when freezing an enemy and creating consecrated ground on shattering an enemy. As a cold damage crit bow, those effects would of course be very easy to trigger, as critical strikes with cold damage always freeze. Chilled ground is a great defensive tool as it slows down enemies significantly, but the mobs are already frozen when it procs. I do not care for slowing down enemies who cannot move! And the consecrated ground is created by the bow whenever you shatter an enemy. In solo play this will not be of much use to you, as the healing ground effect is created when the enemy dies. And as a bow character, if you find yourself on top of your enemies, you are probably doing something wrong or playing a point blank build, which is fine, but if so, why are you not using Chin Soul instead? Next up we got Sheamus Gift. A quiver for spellcasters. Apparently bow wizards are here to stay. It has a lot of useful stats for a bowcaster, such as crit chance, dexterity, which is often needed to fulfill the high dex requirements of a bow. Some cast speed, life, and a bit of resists are always nice to have as well. The stun avoidance makes the build attractive for energy shield based builds, but the interesting mod here is definitely the 1% increased lightning damage per 10 intelligence. This can be a pretty nice damage increase. Playing a projectile based build such as Spark, the quiver has to compete with the likes of a drill neck, which would easily require 900 plus intelligence, which without actual investment into the stat is not too easily achieved. If playing a build that gains additional benefits from stacking intelligence, such as an ES build, this might still work out pretty well though. For non-projectile based lightning bow wizards, yes, we are getting a bit niche here, this quiver is great. Voltaxic Shock Nova anyone? Or maybe a Wrath's Reach Arc build? Yes, those builds are a bit hipster, but that's where I see this quiver's place. A nice option for a few very specific builds. The third unique we want to look at is Cloak of Tornor Isley, or something like that. 450 energy shield chest piece is definitely not huge, but a manageable amount for ES builds to compensate for. The cloak prevents your minions from being blinded, which is whatever. Your minions also have a 15% chance to blind on hit, socketed minion gems are linked to a level 16 life leech, and magic items drop identified. Now this is insanely good for animate weapons. The leech and blind help keep your minions alive. While the leech only works for socketed gems, the blind is applied by all your minions. This is a huge survivability boost for any minion you decide to run in your animate weapon build, such as additional zombies or specters. But the biggest game changer is the fact that you can now animate blue weapons. Because they drop identified, that means you get a lot of extra weapons to animate, and they also have the potential to roll damage mods as a nice bonus. I think this item will see a lot of use in different minion builds, but Animate Weapon got a huge new item to play with. Lastly, there is the Touch of Anguish, a unique Imperial Claw. I really like this item. It is a physical damage claw with a nice base crit of around 8%, around 220 physical DPS, and a good base with a nice 1.6 attacks per second. The theme of this item is obviously cold centered, with a 30% increase to cold damage, 20% chance to gain frenzy charges on killing frozen enemies, and the very strong extra chain on max frenzy charges. Normally on a Fizz crit claw, this would mean run hatred and gain free frenzy, but this specific claw likes to make it a bit more difficult for you. When using Touch of Anguish, your crits do not automatically proc freeze anymore, but it comes with an extra 10% freeze chance to get you started, but not enough to reliably freeze enemies. This makes getting enough freeze procs to actually sustain your frenzy charges quite difficult, because freeze chance is not very easy to get from passives or gear. I could see a Frostblade's Deadeye dropping the chain gem, and with that a big less damage multiplier, to instead get the chains from the Deadeye Ascendancy class and the touch of Anguish Claw. Instead of the chain support, you could then run Ice Bite for the extra 15% freeze chance, and of course even more frenzy charge generation. But what is your take on the first 4 unique items GGG has shown us for the upcoming patch? Leave a comment below, subscribe for more PoE content. I am Yoji, and I will see you soon.